Elizabeth Holmes
against Elizabeth Holmes.
The closely watched criminal trial of the Theranos founder, Elizabeth Holmes.
Hey, we've got a lot more details coming out of the trial of Elizabeth Holmes. Now, if you've been living under a rock, Holmes was the CEO and founder of Theranos, a Silicon Valley startup that claimed it had invented basically a miracle device that could use a simple finger prick instead of traditional blood samples in order to test for all sorts of medical ailments. Theranos raised tons of money from investors, and at its peak, it was valued at just under $10 billion. And then it turned out to be a big fraud. And me? I'm a software developer with over 2 decades in tech, but lately I'm getting doom-pilled on the tech industry. From big tech censorship to the loss of privacy to frauds like Theranos, I've had enough. So I call myself TechPhobe here on YouTube, where I call out problems with my industry and I teach you how to protect yourself. So hit like, hit subscribe, and turn on your notifications because I wouldn't want you to miss a video. All right, here we go. Prosecutors questioned a former Theranos product manager named Daniel Edlin, asking him about investor pitches and other relationships, trying to build the case that the blood testing startup knowingly misled investors about the capabilities of its technology. Edlin was involved in a range of investor-related activities, including giving tours. Each tour was scripted, which is not surprising, but the path was approved by Holmes herself, Edlin said, which adds to evidence that she had the final say on many investor-related matters. Before one tour, he recalled, Theranos' proprietary testing devices were set up in a room to look like they were in active use. Now, in demos given to investors, they would have their fingers pricked for testing alongside one of Theranos' proprietary devices, but the actual test would be run in a lab away from prying eyes. Machines that were shown to investors often ran a demo app that would prevent error messages from displaying on the device's screen, or a null protocol that would analyze the sample. Edlin testified that these ruses were used within a month of Theranos offering testing services for patients. So in other words, the machines were actually programmed to look like they were doing something when they weren't, and the demos given to investors were just theater. The investors thought that they were seeing the machines they were about to invest in doing their magic, but it turned out to just be smoke and mirrors. Meanwhile, investors were given binders that made hyperbolic claims about Theranos diagnostic technology. One binder sent to media tycoon Rupert Murdoch, who invested $125 million, said, Theranos offers tests with the highest level of accuracy. The company's technology, it also said, generates significantly higher integrity data than currently possible. And of course, that all turned out to just be bullshit. Now, in addition to product managers, the prosecution has also been interested in hearing from Theranos lab directors who were in charge of the machines and the tests. I mean, if the machines could do even some of what Theranos claimed they could, then the lab directors should be able to testify to that, right? Lynette Sawyer was co-director of the startup's California lab starting in late 2014. She heard about the position from a consulting firm that helps staff labs, and it was originally supposed to be a temporary job lasting up to 3 months. Sawyer overlapped as a lab director with Sunil Dewan, who is Theranos COO and co-defendant Ramesh Sunny Balwani's dermatologist. More on that later. Sawyer told the court that she had never spoken to Dewan. Dewan testified earlier that he wasn't aware at the time that he was sharing the position with Sawyer. Sawyer said she was sent documents that covered standard operating procedures on ordinary FDA-approved assays, performed on standard lab equipment. She never visited the lab, wasn't invited to, and didn't review data from Theranos' proprietary devices. In fact, Sawyer said she didn't even know that Theranos was using its own devices in the government-regulated lab. Despite being hired for only a few months, Theranos kept her on until she left of her own accord after about 6 months. As that time wore on and on, I grew increasingly uncomfortable in the way things were done, she said. I was very uncomfortable with the lack of clarity about the lab. So apparently the lab directors didn't know about each other, and some of them weren't even let near the devices. But maybe Lynette Sawyer was just the outlier. I mean, they could have hired her proactively and then never really found a use for her before she quit. Unless, of course, Theranos was paying their lab directors just to rubber stamp forms. The jury heard some eye-opening testimony from Sunil Dhawan, the doctor Theranos hired to replace its previous lab director. Dhawan was the longtime dermatologist of Theranos COO Ramesh Balwani, who will be facing the same fraud charges as Holmes in the spring. Dhawan was a board-certified doctor, so he met the state and federal requirements to be a lab director. But unlike Adam Rosendorf, the previous director who resigned over the questionable accuracy of the company's test results, Dhawan was not board-certified in laboratory science, nor did he have any prior experience running a lab of that scale or scope. Dhawan also admitted that he had to Google Theranos tech when Balwani initially approached him. Before he was recruited, he didn't even know much about the company's technology. Dhawan testified that he went to Theranos twice and that he worked a total of 5 to 10 hours between November 2014 and June 2015. During that time, he basically signed whatever Balwani sent him. So there you have it. Theranos programmed their machines to basically play screensavers in order to cheat their investors, and they hired certified lab directors to look official and rubber stamp forms so that they could appear legal and legit. But what do you think? Drop me a comment down below to let me know. Don't forget to hit that like button, and feel free to share this video on any privacy-raping social media platforms that you happen to use. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.